not interested in black kids thriving. They're barely interested in black kids surviving. But let a black man get shot by the police, he's elevated and celebrated. Those are your heroes. Those are the heroes, the people that they want us to celebrate and march and riot in the streets. But they're not interested in stories like mine. Let me explain to you why I'm so passionate about school choice. This hits home for me because if I didn't have access, or should I say, if I didn't take my school choice, my life would have turned out very differently. My mother had to advocate and fight for me to go to a different junior high school because she knew that if I had gone to the neighborhood school where there were fights every day, girls shanking other girls, cutting your hair, throwing nair in your hair. I mean, it was just crazy. The level of violence and just civil unrest in the neighborhood school where I grew up. And my mother had already had 3 other children who came before me that went to that school, and things went left. So since there is a 10-year gap between me and my next sibling, by the time I was old enough to leave elementary school and go to junior high school, my mother was like, you're not going. We got to figure something else out. And so there was a lady at our church whose daughter had attended a charter school in Spanish Harlem called Harbor School for the Performing Arts. And this wasn't just a school that everybody in the neighborhood could go to. There was an application process and there was an audition. And I remember when I heard my mom talking to this other mom about the amazing opportunity that her daughter had experienced by going to this school. And then after completing this school, her daughter went on to a boarding school. She got a scholarship and went on to this boarding school. And now her daughter was just a student at Emory University. And she was just doing really, really well. And my mother, I could see the spark in her eye. And even though she was like, okay, well, I don't necessarily know how to navigate in this system, but I want that for my daughter too. And she was like, Miss Reed, what do I have to do to get April in a school like that? She pulls out a slip of paper and she writes the phone number. And she said, you call Miss Moore, the principal of that school, on Monday, and you tell her, you give her my name, and you tell her that you need an application and you need to get April an audition so she can get into that school for this upcoming fall. And my mother did just that. And I got an application and she handed me the application. She was like, okay, I need you to fill out this application in your best handwriting. There were no computers back then. It was a typewriter or your best penmanship. And I filled out that application, and I will never forget when I got that letter in the mail that said your interview and your audition is on this day. And mind you, at the time, I'm like, well, a performing arts school. And I'm like, well, I don't really have a talent. My mother's like, yes, you do. You've been singing in the church choir since you was 3. You're going to audition for the vocal department. I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'll just, I don't have this stellar voice. Like I am not the next Beyonce by any stretch of the imagination. However, I grew up in the church. My mother was a church musician. I know how to bust out in some alto harmony if you played a melody. So I went into that chorus room on the day of my audition, and I will never forget Miss, is her name Miss Berenstein? I can't even remember the choral director's name. Kind of short, loved her to pieces. I'm old now. I'll remember her name. By the time I end this video, I will remember her name. But she played a melody on the piano, and she was like, I need you to sing what you hear. Just mimic what you hear. I was like, this is easy. So, she's playing the little do-do-do-do-do, and I'm singing do-do-do-do-do. And then she's like, okay, can you read music? And I'm like, kind of, sort of. I used to take piano lessons, so, I can identify the letter. She's like, okay. She hands me some choral music, and she's like, okay, I'm going to play this melody once, but I want to see if you can follow the notes and sing along. She played it one time, and I'm like, okay, I know 4/4 timing. I'm like, okay, I can do this. And I sing that. And then she goes, okay, sing me your favorite song as if you were in the shower. I can't even remember if I sang Whitney Houston's The Greatest Love of All or something else that was popular at the time. Or did I sing Amazing Grace? I don't even remember what I sang. I have no idea. But here's what I do know. I know a few weeks later, I got my acceptance letter and I got into that school. And the only thing that was needed was my records from my previous school. So the first day of school, I enrolled at Harbor School for the Performing Arts, and I'm meeting all these other brilliant, artistic, and creative kids. And soon later, I get called into the office because they're like, we've been waiting for your records from your previous school, and we still don't have them. If we don't get your records, we don't know if you're going to be able to stay here. So I tell my mom goes down to the elementary school, and they're like, oh no, we're not releasing those records because we have her reported as a truant because she didn't report to, the school in the community. My mother's like, no, I withdrew her from that school and I notified you where she would be attending school, and I asked for a records request. I submitted what I needed to submit. Why haven't you sent her records? Do you know that assistant principal was like, well, we're not releasing them and she needs to come to this school? My mom was like, okay, maybe you didn't hear me. I said she's not going to that school. She's already enrolled in another school and they're waiting on her records. They put my mama through so much red tape. And finally, the truth came out. Finally, they were like, listen, we're just going to be honest with you, Mrs. Charles. We can't afford to have any more top performing students leave the district. It just looks bad. We can't, she needs to go to this school. And my mother was like, listen, I will come up in here and turn out all kinds of mayhem if you do not send the records. They refused to send the records. They refused to return my mother's call. And it's by the grace of God. The Lord sovereignly orchestrated this on my mother's behalf. There was this little old school secretary. She's probably deceased by now because she was in her early millions back then. And she heard how combative the principal and the assistant principal were being with my mother, refusing to release those records. And I will never forget when she got that call. And I will never forget what that little school secretary told my mother. She was like, listen, I could lose my job for this. She said, I need you to come up to the school, just be normal, just be regular, but I'm going to hand you April's record. She was like, it's been a pleasure having April in this school these past 3 years. And I hate to see what they're trying to do to you to try to keep her in this school district and force her to go to 123. My mother went up to that school and, kept it real vanilla, kept it real nonchalant. And the school secretary handed my mother my transcript and my grades so that I could continue to be enrolled in the charter school in Spanish Harlem. Well, the journey from that school in Spanish Harlem kept me insulated and isolated from all of the crime and the sexual perversion and all the bullying and all the neighborhood fights. I was sheltered from all of that. I was traveling every day, taking 2 buses. No, I would take a bus and 2 trains, or depending on, I could take 1 train, but then I'd have to walk every day for school for 3 years. And I enjoyed absolutely every moment of it. Small class size. There were only 2 classes per grade. So it was just 7A, 7B, 8A, 8B, 9A, 9B. That was it. 6 classes in the whole school. There was less than 200 students in this entire school. These were like my family. My teachers were like my family. Do you know my vocal teacher also was my ninth grade math teacher. In the beginning of the ninth grade school year, she taught sequential math. I will never forget. She approached me and said, you know, April, you make the dean's list every month, and you're probably going to be our valedictorian. She said, what are your plans? You didn't, because in New York City, if you go to a junior high that's 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, they give you the option to leave in the 8th grade and go to high school for 9 through 12, or you can stay another year, do 7, 8, 9, and then you go to high school for 10th grade. I chose to go to high school for 10th grade. So she goes, well, I see, you didn't leave last year. We're glad that you stayed. What is your plan? Do you want to go to LaGuardia? Do you want to go to Bronx Science? Do you want to go to Brooklyn Tech? And I was like, I don't know. I said, Brooklyn Tech is far. And I said, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think I'm be able to get into Bronx Science. Like Bronx Science, the only kids that was getting into Bronx Science were like super, super smart Asian kids and just like those rare breeds. It was super competitive. So it was either Brooklyn Tech, Bronx Science, or Stuyvesant, or LaGuardia, the high school where Fame was the inspiration from. I knew I didn't want to go to LaGuardia. I like performing arts, but I was like, listen, I can't sing that good. I'm not getting into LaGuardia. She said, well, here's what I think you should do. She said, there is this program called A Better Chance, and it's specifically designed to support minorities through the application process and through their entire high school career, but you can get the opportunity to go to a boarding school or a private day school. She was like, super competitive to get in, but I will train. She said, I will prep you to sit and take the SSAT, which is the secondary school admissions test. That's what it is. The secondary school admissions test. She said, I will prep you. We can work on the weekends, whatever we need to do, but you need to be down at Trinity School and take that test. And she said, I'll do your recommendations. I'll work with the other faculty, whatever recommendations you need. I'll help you with the application process. But she says, I think you should apply to some boarding schools then. I was like, boarding school? I was like, you mean like Facts of Life boarding school? And she was like, yes. I was like, you know what? That doesn't sound like a bad idea. And so that's what I did. I got accepted to several boarding schools. Phillips Exeter was one, Foxcroft in Virginia, and St. Catherine's School in Richmond, Virginia. That's where I chose. No, that's not true. Pomfret School in Connecticut. I applied to Pomfret School, Phillips Exeter, and St. Catherine's in Richmond, Virginia. I got into St. Catherine's. They accepted my SSAT scores, and they were like, welcome to St. Catherine's. Best decision of my life. Changed my life for the better. Don't tell me that school choice does not change lives. That may not be your story, but there are stories and so many other people just like me who were stuck in a bad neighborhood school where there was no active PTA, where the parents did not care, where the teachers were like, we just here to collect a check, and the school and the children were just wild out, all pandemonium all day, every day. I knew I didn't want to go to a school like that. So my mother had to fight, literally, and advocate for me to go to the school of my choice when school choice did not exist. If we had had school choice, it wouldn't have been an argument of where I was going to go to school. I would have went to school wherever the heck I wanted to go to school. So this is why I am such a staunch advocate for school choice. And this is why I know for a fact the NAACP does not support school choice, because they need the teachers' unions in their back pocket, and teachers' union does not support school choice. They're not interested in Black kids thriving. They're barely interested in Black kids surviving. But let a Black man get shot by the police, he's elevated and celebrated. Those are your heroes. Those are the heroes, the people that they want us to celebrate and march and riot in the streets. But they're not interested in stories like mine. And they're not interested in celebrating the 1.3 million students in the state of Florida who are experiencing the benefits and the wonders of school choice and how it has changed their life in the state of Florida. So I thought I'd tell y'all that story because it matters. Having a firsthand account, it matters. This is why I sat and had dinner with Michael Benjamin, one of the state advisors for the American Federation of Children. This is why the NAACP got to throw shade on Florida. They know that Florida, if we rinsed and repeat, like if we took the messaging from Florida and rinsed and repeat in other states, Chicago's children wouldn't be having flash mobs and wilding out in the street and at the mall and just what happened in Florida, we need to rinse and repeat in other states too. And the NAACP can't have that. So that's my theory.